Well, the Senate just passed the USA Freedom Act, so-called, and it's not looking like a whole lot has changed. We're back to being spied on just like we were before. Of course, the question that probably should be asked is, has anything actually changed really since the change that was made with the Patriot Act having been rescinded or redacted or taken away or what have you? It actually it expired, technically speaking. So was there any change at all? Well, we kept hearing that all these different agencies and different associations and administrations and such would have to scale down, right? They'd have to take out their previously full-time working guys who were working on these mass collection programs. They'd have to sort of take them out of the equation, at least until the Patriot Act got renewed or reinstated, perhaps. So did anything actually change when the Patriot Act was taken out? Is there a grace period between when an act is no longer law and when you can be prosecuted for being in violation of that act? You'd think at the very end of that act, you could immediately be prosecuted for a violation of it, right? Or for the violation or the committing of acts which are not legal, which would be bulk metadata collection, which the Supreme, rather a federal appeals court, I should say, has determined is not legal. So the courts of this land, which make legal opinion, have said that it's not legal to collect bulk metadata. So that being the case, that should sort of be the end of it, right? You'd think that that would have been it, and the Patriot Act would immediately have been thrown out, that being the case. But for some reason, it wasn't. For some reason, we weren't really seeing that. We still had the problem of bulk metadata collection, even though it's illegal. So anyone who was arguing for it was arguing for something which is actually just blatantly illegal anyway. So how can you defend that? And also, we had, of course, a bunch of senators and such who were saying that these are very valuable tools, and why would anyone want to take them away? Well, they may be very valuable tools, but they're definitely in the wrong hands. That's the thing. For some reason, we're supposed to be protecting, or rather, we're supposed to be trusting these different agencies to protect us, and it's really not working out very well. Think about it this way. We have the NSA, just as an example, and they're stealing a ton of information. Okay, they're collecting a ton of information. But what good has it done? Now, without invoking any actual deaths, any actual lethal events, we can point towards several examples of things that almost happened and only didn't because of sheer fluke. There was the underwear bomber, and there was a shoe bomber. Now, both of those people probably used cell phones at some point. Both of those people were radicalized or whatever, and they were associated with Boko Haram or what have you. But both of those people managed to get to their destination and almost blew up airplanes. They didn't, thankfully, but they almost did. So where was the NSA during all that time? You see, if they're not doing their jobs, what are they doing? They're collecting a bunch of metadata, but to what end? To what purpose? For what purpose, I should say. We don't actually know. If they're not going to be protecting us, then what are they doing? Not doing a very good job there. Now, that's not anything that's very much of a surprise either, is the funny thing. If they're not protecting us, then that shouldn't be a surprise to us because they very rarely ever do anyway. So it's not really any surprise when we see that they've yet again failed to do anything right. Now, we'll notice too that they managed to protect themselves pretty well when it's the people who work in these different agencies are the ones who are under attack or are under threat. Just recently, there was that. This is a bit of an odd example, but just recently, as in yesterday, there was that alleged terrorist who, according to reports, lunged at a policeman, and he was quickly arrested and apprehended and all that sort of thing. That was when there was a threat against a government representative. But when it's against a actual member of the public, your average working man, your common man, then not really much goes on in order to protect them. It seems that the common man is sort of on a lower tier than those who are working for the governmental systems which we have today. So anyway, we say all that to say the USA Freedom Act really hasn't changed a whole lot, and it has a very deceptive name. They call it the USA Freedom Act because same reason they called the Patriot Act, because it's not really that. It's not very patriotic. In fact, it's not at all. But it's still sort of a nice sounding thing. when they passed the Patriot Act, everyone was in a very obvious state of patriotic fervor because 9/11 had just happened. It was 2001, and everyone was all up and raring to go to get those terrorists. So to get those terrorists, obviously, we need to spy on Americans. So in order to spy on Americans, we need to have the appropriate tools required to intercept and obstruct terrorism. And that's actually part of the name of the Patriot Act. A lot of people don't know that, actually. I didn't know that until just recently. But the Patriot Act is actually seriously an acronym. I didn't know that until just a little while ago. It's not something that's very well publicized, obviously, but here's the full name of the Patriot Act. And this is serious. It's actually, this is what it is. Uniting and strengthening America, see, that's the USA part, by providing appropriate tools required to intercept and obstruct terrorism Act of 2001. So the full name of it is Uniting and Strengthening America. That's the USA bit. And then the Patriot part is by providing appropriate tools required to intercept and obstruct terrorism Act of 2001. So anytime you see the Patriot Act mentioned in print, it should actually be in all caps, and they rarely ever do that. The full name of the bill is USA Patriot Act, and the full name of the bill is Uniting and Strengthening America by providing appropriate tools required to intercept and obstruct terrorism Act of 2001. So that being the case, it's not really doing any of that. It's not uniting or strengthening America, although it might be strengthening the political caste. It's not really uniting and strengthening us, people, the guys who are supposed to be the masters of our servants, which are the players in government. Instead, it's really actually sort of undermining us, and it's making us less powerful than we really should be. So it's not uniting us, and it's definitely not strengthening America. So it's sort of doing exactly the opposite of that already. And it says it's providing appropriate tools. Well, who determines what those tools are? Who determines why those tools are appropriate? Who determines when a tool is appropriate? Who determines when a tool is inappropriate? We don't know. There's nobody to stand up and say, well, this tool is wrong, but this one's okay. There's not really anyone who says that other than just the people who vote on these bills. It's the appropriate tools, which they say are required to intercept and obstruct terrorism. So are those tools actually required to intercept and obstruct terrorism? Well, actually, no, not the ones that are in the Patriot Act, because they already had ones from before that, from back in the 80s, which they actually did use to obstruct and intercept terrorism. So it's really moot. It's obvious that the Patriot Act had a much broader intent than just capturing terrorists. Now, that's a very nice example, a very nice excuse for passing it, but that was not the original intent, I can guarantee you. Although they may claim that they're the original author of the bill and all that sort of thing, they may have a sponsor of the bill, but the bill was written, or the act was written by quite a few people, actually. So it's pretty hard to get one guy who you can say is the author of the Patriot Act. You can't really, because there's many tens of them, I'm sure. Well, Ars Technica has a great write-up on this called Let the Snooping Resume, and the Senate has revived Patriot Act surveillance measures. So we may as well just act like the Patriot Act hasn't really changed at all, because it really hasn't that much. They still have the power to track people across different cell phones for continuity, so they don't have to get a warrant for each and every cell phone that you purchase. I can understand that bit. That part does actually make a little bit of sense. But again, it's sort of asking for a generalized warrant, and that's a little bit weird, but I can understand that one, but I'm not sure how I feel about it. And there's also the whole problem with them targeting lone wolf terrorists. So that was another part of the Patriot Act, was it allowed them to target lone wolf actors who are not affiliated with a known terrorist organization like Al-Qaeda or like Boko Haram or like ISIS or ISIL or the Islamic State or whatever you want to call it, or like the CIA. Oh, wait, no, not that one. But all the different terrorist organizations which we know exist. And if you're not associated with that one, then now they can look for you, I guess. Now you can be suspect. And it also allowed for, of course, bulk metadata collection by the NSA. We weren't supposed to know about that part, though, is the funny thing. Like, Edward Snowden, of course, released documents about it, and many different so-called conservative talk show hosts at the time, and some even today, said that it was just the worst act of treason ever, and he should be put in jail and all that sort of thing, which I don't get. It seems like Edward Snowden actually provided sort of an essential service to us, the people who are supposed to actually sort of make up government, but we aren't doing a very good job of that right now. It provided an essential service to us by knowing what is going on here, because it wasn't a question of what tools are the United States government using to seek out terrorists abroad. That's not actually what the NSA was doing. It was domestic spying, which equates to illegal spying. So it's not really appropriate to argue that Snowden is some sort of awful traitor and he should be shot because he revealed what the government is doing to us. These aren't tools that are used to stop terrorists. These are tools that are used to spy on your average American, which is not exactly something that anyone would argue for unless they're some sort of awful statist or fascist or sometimes even a communist would argue for that. Although I don't think a pure communist would. Maybe more of a Stalin type communist would. I don't think a Lenin type would, but maybe. Anyway, the Senate on Tuesday, which is yesterday, revived 3 surveillance provisions of the Patriot Act that had expired early Monday because of Senate discord. So we had for almost one whole day, we had no surveillance going on that was provided for by the Patriot Act, supposedly. Now, can we assume that for that whole day, there was no surveillance going on at all? I don't think so. But the legislation, which is called the USA Freedom Act, was approved 2 weeks ago in the House of Representatives, and President Barack Obama has signed it into the House now. The Patriot Act provision, one of which was renewed under the bill, was a variation of the phone record spy program that, of course, National Security Agency whistleblower Edward Snowden disclosed back in 2013. Can you believe it's been 2 years since the whole Edward Snowden thing broke? 2 years. Well, the business records section is one of the renewed provisions that Ars Technica has pointed out, which is enabling the NSA's bulk telephone metadata program. It grants the government powers to seize most any record, even banking and phone records, by the way, by getting a warrant from the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, or FISA courts. And these nation's spies must assert that the records are relevant to a terrorism investigation to get the warrant from the secret court. Now, what determines that it is in fact relevant? We don't know. There's not any clear indicator for what determines a particular instance to be relevant or not. That would be, again, up to the court to decide, and the court is pretty obviously in favor of these the NSA spy bills and such anyway. So we're probably not going to be seeing much. I guess the word would be much discretion on their part. They're going to be very obviously biased towards the NSA. Under the new legislation, however, the bulk phone metadata stays with telecoms and is removed from the hands of the NSA. That's a good thing and a bad thing. On the one hand, that means now that the telcos hold the information like they should anyway. But on the other hand, it means that these telcos can now be prosecuted if they get rid of information that they're supposed to hold on to, because there is a mandated retention period for telecoms, telephone companies, by the way. So let's say I make a phone call 6 months ago, or I have made a phone call 6 months ago. I'm pretty sure that it depends on the instance, and they keep switching around. But for now, I believe it is 2 years is their retention period. The reason I'm unsure about that is because they keep switching it around, and it's hard to tell which is which, because there's a retention period for telephone records, and there's a retention period for ISP records, internet service provider records, and it's really confusing which is which, and they're not really clear on that, and I'm not sure if it's even made public what the retention period is, so it's hard to tell. But there's also gag orders which can be issued against ISPs that prevent them from ever talking about the different programs that are in place against them. So it's just another example of a tyrannical state. What do you expect, really? But what we have now under the USA Freedom Act, it means that this information will be held by the ISPs under the mandated retention periods, so that this information can then be totally not stolen by the CIA or by the NSA in this case, or the FBI if they require it, or whatever. To do that, they have to get a court order, not a warrant, but a court order. Completely different. So it's still illegal. It's still a warrantless search. To prove that it is illegal, I have in front of me the law of the land, or what's supposed to be the law of the land. In this case, it's the Fourth Amendment, of course, which is search and seizure. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and persons or things to be seized. Meaning that there's no such thing as a general warrant, because that's not legal. It's not a real warrant. It's just a piece of paper that you handed to a judge and hope that he'd sign it. It's not a real warrant. Otherwise, it would be very specific. This means that they can't just write up, let's say, all telephone records from 2012 and have a judge sign that warrant and give it to AT&T. It doesn't work that way. You have to get a specific warrant for a specific time period for a specific phone number. So let's say I want the phone records for the station number here, 423-800-8949. The NSA wants the records from the year 2012 on January the 1st to January the 3rd, 2012 for 423-800-8949, and they'll get all those records for that particular date, those particular dates. So I have to sign a warrant for that specific time and place, okay? That's a warrant. That's a legal warrant that, again, has to be signed by a judge. I assume the judge would be from the FISA court, although I'm not sure. That, again, is not really clear. They don't like to talk about that bit. So, again, not clear, not sure, sort of a gray area there. But that's what has to happen. So they claim these tools are necessary and they need these tools to counter terrorism, but I'm not sure who they're targeting here. These bills, of course, make everyone a potential terrorist, right? I mean, they're asking for proof that the person they're looking for is an actual person of interest, but I'm not sure what determines a person to be a person of interest, right? Because nobody knows except for the people who are involved in this process. It makes things very complicated and very difficult because it's hard to tell who's a terrorist and who's not. I don't think they even really care who's a terrorist and who's not at this point, because it's not really a question of terrorism. That's sort of the narrative. That's the official story, that it's about terrorism. When in actuality, it's more about market control and price setting and that sort of thing. Because if you know everyone's habits, then you can feed that information, of course, to the Federal Reserve or any other agency, financial institution you want to, so that information can then be adjusted to influence the market. Which is, again, why we don't have a true free market in the United States. Probably won't again either in the United States as a country for a long time, if ever. Free market would mean that there's no government intervention in the markets, and there most definitely is. So you can't have a free market if this sort of thing is going on. You can't really have a free market and a fiat currency at the same time either. That doesn't work. You can't have a free market and a Federal Reserve either at the same time. That also doesn't work. So there's a lot of different reasons why we don't have a true free market in the United States. Lots of different reasons. That's a whole nother show. If you're interested in local economy, of course, listen to Nuganomics.com with David Toulas, which is his show that's on from 1 to 3 right here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240. And this is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, where we are everywhere. Listen live to Hot News Talk Radio at hotnewstalkradio.com. Download the TuneIn Radio app and search for Hot News Talk Radio. Hot News Talk Radio is on Twitter, where you report the world decides. That's AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. You can save half off now. Go to hotnewstalkradio.com and click on the half off link for great deals. Hot News Talk Radio is saving you money. That's AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. Something I've noticed about the Patriot Act and the USA Freedom Act is people keep changing their opinion on it. By that, I mean you have people who are prominent, say, conservative talk show hosts or prominent pundits or prominent opinion people in the conservative side who are at one point, or were at one point, very excited about the Patriot Act because it allowed for different provisions that countered terrorism. Terrorism was always the big boogeyman for the first bit of the 2000s, and up until just recently, terrorism has sort of been the big boogeyman. If you shout terrorism, then people are going to rally behind you and go for whatever you posit. So we've had that problem since basically 2001 up until just recently, where terrorism has been the big boogeyman, and now people are so jaded towards that it's nobody cares anymore. It's kind of like communism was from the late 1940s all the way up until 1991. Commies were the big thing. Everyone was afraid of the commies. Be afraid of the commies because they're going to pass their socioeconomic ideology onto you, and you'll suddenly not want to participate in a free market, and you'll want government to control prices and production and all that sort of thing. I'm not sure what they're going for with that, but whatever. For some reason, communism was the big boogeyman. We all needed to be afraid of communism, and we needed to combat terrorism, or communism, I should say, by going into different areas and shooting a bunch of people who are completely unrelated. But anyway, that was the whole communism thing. And now, or for a while, it was terrorism, and now it's who knows? Who knows what the next big boogeyman is? Maybe it's going to be domestic terrorism. Maybe it's going to be cyber terrorism. Maybe it's going to be something completely unrelated. Maybe it'll be aliens. Who knows? You know, the next big narrative. Who knows what it's going to be? So it's just the next big boogeyman that's going to be a distraction from the real issue, the real problem, which is, of course, the state. The state is causing more problems than anyone foreign could ever do. I guarantee you. Until we recognize that problem and attempt to solve it, there's not really going to be much change here. People keep saying, well, if we vote this guy in office, then we can change things and make things better. If we get a strong leader, maybe things will be better. I don't want a strong leader because I don't want one guy to determine things. That doesn't fix anything. That just makes more problems. This is Digital Drive. I'm your host, Russell. This is Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240.
This is a mob mode. This is the mob mode. What kind of fool do you think I am? You think I know nothing of my...
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240. Hi, this is your computer speaking. I don't feel so well. It's like I've come down with a bug, and I'm getting slower.
Affordable Computers. We fix sick computers. Your hometown guys at Affordable Computers will repair your PC in half the time of the big boys at an affordable price. No tricks, no gimmicks, no computer speak technobabble. Just good, quick, and courteous affordable service and repairs. Want to affordably supercharge your PC? Affordable Computers on Highway 58. Affordable Computers hand builds all desktops in-house. If you're looking for a better than new refurb laptop, $150 will get you a Dell or another name brand at Affordable Computers. Affordable Computers, Highway 58 between Arby's and Taco Bell. Also Fort O, Battlefield Parkway near Holcomb's. Affordable Computers, we service what we sell. Call 499-1975. That's 499-1975.
Wow, this is amazing. I'm feeling great. Supercharged.
Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes of poor indoor air quality. Ducts Indoor Air Professionals, better known as Duct Busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 definable Duct Busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses. Prevent fires by cleaning your dryer vents. Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems 16 years. Ducts Indoor Air Professionals. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Ducts. Call now.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
You love your hometown. Are you interested in free markets, in local economy? Do you hope that Chattanooga can survive the next meltdown, the next chain of disasters in the national economy? What's the best way to live out the ideals of self-government and self-determination? Join me, David Toulis, weekdays 1 to 3.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Love your neighbor, buy local. Accountants and tax preparers talk about help, but here's someone with help you can use right now as you plan for tax season. EJ Pelton Company has a website with excellent financial tools, ejpelton.com. Click any topic, budgeting, college, debt, mortgage, income, insurance, payroll and benefits, retirement. Go to ejpelton.com right now, and later today, give yourself time to think about taxes and the help you'll need. ejpelton.com, open 52 weeks a year, always available for questions or tax help. EJ Pelton, a company to depend on at tax time. Think ahead, ejpelton.com. Call 332-3339. That's 332-3339.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Fox News Radio. I'm Lillian Wu. In federal court in Boston, a suspect who was arrested after the shooting death of another suspect.
David Wright is expected to be arraigned in relation to this JTTF, Joint Terrorism Task Force investigation. He's linked in some way to the man who was killed yesterday by an FBI agent and a police officer here in Boston. And that man's name, 26-year-old Usama Rahim, who had allegedly attacked those investigators with a military-style knife.
Fox's Molly Line at a House hearing underway on extremism. Intel officials warning about the growing use of encrypted communication and private messaging by supporters of the Islamic State. And opening statements in the trial of a group that offers so-called gay conversion therapy.
4 men and 2 of their mothers are suing the group called Jews Offering New Alternatives for Healing. They say the group illegally characterized homosexuality as a mental disorder and claimed it could successfully change patients.
Fox Radio's Tanya J. Powers. Fox News, we report.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
keep hearing these stories about people getting attacked with a military style this or that, and it's I'm not sure what a military style knife is, by the way. Yeah, have you been hearing about that? Some guy attacked another guy with a military style knife, which I assume would be like a K-bar. But what's a military style knife? Like, what makes a military style knife any more deadly than a kitchen knife? I'm not sure. It's a little bit odd. You know, there's a military style knife, and then you've got the regular style knife, which is a little bit less lethal than the military style knife. A little bit odd. And you keep hearing that too. It's sort of the narrative that people keep pushing. It doesn't particularly matter what weapon was used in the killing of somebody else, in the slaying of somebody else. It doesn't really matter. The fact is that somebody died. The implement that was used doesn't particularly matter. We're not talking about weapons of mass destruction, right? We're not talking about a biological weapon that's been used to murder somebody. We're talking about a simple handgun, which I could go out and buy. Actually, no, I couldn't. I'm not old enough. But we're talking about, okay, a rifle, which I could just go out and buy. You know, anyone could go out and buy a rifle, but I have no intent of harming another person. You know, I have no intent to harm when I purchase this thing. So what difference does it make if I buy it? If I possess this implement, does that make me any more dangerous than I was before? Not really. I have a right to own that just as much as I have a right to know about martial arts, right? I know a little bit about martial arts. I'm definitely not a black belt by any means. I'm not trying to say, look how great I am. I'm using it as an example here because I'm not by any means a grandmaster or anything. You know, I'm not Bruce Lee. I'm not going to beat up 12 guys at the same time. It doesn't work that way anyway. I don't know if anyone could beat up 12 guys at the same time. It doesn't work that way. 4, definitely. 6, but 12, no way. It's not like in the movies where they all stop. You know, you punch one guy and they all sort of stop and let you beat him up, and then the next guy comes in and you beat him up, and then the next guy comes in and you beat the crap out of him. It doesn't work that way. But anyway, I have a right to know how to beat somebody up. Who's going to tell me that you can't know that? It's not like in China back in the day, I mean hundreds of years ago, when people had to learn Tai Chi as a martial art because it looked like a meditative dance, but then when sped up is a very effective combat technique. It's not like that. You have a right to know this particular combat technique. I don't care what it is. You're using your hands. How are you going to make knowledge illegal? How are you going to make hands illegal? Are you going to start cutting off people's hands, make it illegal for people to know how to properly pull a punch or what? How are you going to regulate that? It's the same thing with weaponry. If we're talking about swords, we're talking about knives, we're talking about guns, the capacity, the firing speed is all semantics. The fact is that somebody is dead. That's what matters. Somebody has died in this particular instance. That's the fact. That's what matters. Now, the person should be charged, you know, with murder and go through a jury of his peers and that whole rigmarole, the whole legal process. You have a right to that. Just anyone has a right to that. That's, again, another right. Just as a person had a right to own the weapon in the first place, he also had a right to bear it in the first place. But as soon as harm has come to a person to whom harm should not have come, that's when the crime starts, right? That's when the moral wrong starts. I'm not sure of anyone who would argue that owning a weapon is a moral wrongness, right? I don't know of anyone who would argue that. There probably is somebody. But think about it. We're not talking about what's the right thing to do. You know, we're not talking about it's the common sense, whatever, because I'm not even sure if common sense really exists these days anyway. But it's really silly to me when people say, well, if we ban assault style weapons, and that's any weapon anyway, I could assault you with my hands, I could assault you with a stapler, I could assault you with the brim of my cap, I could assault you with my shin, I can assault you with an American flag, I can assault you with a plastic bag, I can assault you anyway, Sam I am, and it doesn't particularly matter what I did to do it. The fact is that I did it, right? So an assault style weapon could be anything. I could assault you with this computer mouse in front of me. I could assault you with this microphone. There's millions of ways I could assault a person. The fact is that the assault happened, not how it happened, right? That's what mattered. If there's an assault with a deadly weapon, that's another thing. I don't get the deadly weapon thing. Anything could be a deadly weapon. I don't understand that. But assault is the action. So that's the action that matters, not how it was done. It's the action that matters because that's the crime. It's assault against, it's unjust violence, right? That's the moral wrongness, is unjust violence. Violence is wrong. unless it's targeted towards someone who's maybe deserving of that violence in whatever way that could be. Say somebody is, he slaps your girlfriend's butt, right? Okay, deck him. You're fine in doing that because now he's actually put his hands on somebody whom he shouldn't have done that to. You are justified now in decking him. Or somebody pulls a knife on you, right? A knife he bought illegally, maybe. He pulls a knife on you. If you know how, disarm him with the knife, stab him. I don't care. Now you've committed no wrong because you're protecting yourself. You see, that's where things start to get interesting. That's where the moral gray area starts for a lot of people. Is when does the wrongness start? Well, the wrongness starts when violence is initiated against someone else unjustly. Initiating violence is not a good thing. Violence should only be used to stop other forms of violence. And that's when I'm talking about a personal confrontation. If we're talking about international politics, that's a whole other matter. I just want to get that out of my system, I suppose, because I keep hearing people talking about initiation of force, and I keep hearing people talking about assault style this or that, or military style this or that. It doesn't matter. It really just doesn't matter. It's just silly to hear people talking about the whole assault style this or that, or military style this or that. It doesn't matter. Somebody got stabbed with a knife. Somebody got stabbed with a knife. It doesn't matter who made the knife. It just matters that somebody got stabbed with a knife, right? Jeez, people are just ridiculous about that sort of thing, though. Well, Apple is recalling. This is so funny. Apple is recalling a speaker because of a fire hazard. So Apple, in case you didn't know, the Apple Computer Company purchased Beats Audio a few months ago, maybe 2-3 months ago, and purchased it along with its partner, Dr. Dre. Dr. Dre is a pretty famous rapper. He was in NWA way back in the day, in the late 80s, early 90s. He was in NWA. He was on the Straight Outta Compton album. He was on NWA and the Posse, I think was the first one. And he was also on the last one, whose name I can't actually say on the air, but he was on all of those NWA albums, and he had his own solo career. In the mid-90s, he came out with The Chronic, which is a really good rap album, and he sponsored both Snoop Dogg and Eminem. So needless to say, Dr. Dre is a very rich person, and he's pretty smart business-wise. He got involved with Beats by Dre. You ever hear about Beats by Dre? Sure, headphones. Not very good ones, but headphones. And he got involved with that whole rigmarole. Apple was interested. Apple bought Beats. Now Dr. Dre's a shareholder in the Apple Computer Company. So that's that whole story. Well, Apple has recalled Beats speakers over a potential fire risk. Uh-oh. Apple had nothing to do with the development of the Beats Pill XL. That's something that should be thrown out there immediately. Apple's not at fault here, but again, Apple owns Beats Audio, so it's the Beats Pill XL. It's a Bluetooth speaker that was launched back in 2013, which was long before Apple spent billions of dollars to acquire the popular headphone maker at the time. But as it turns out, there's a potential fire risk associated with that particular product, and now it's turned into a headache for the Apple Computer Company. Today, the company announced a voluntary recall of all Beats XL devices, and Apple's encouraging consumers to stop using the product immediately. So if you own a Beats Pill XL Bluetooth speaker, turn that thing in. Take it to your local Apple store and get a refund and buy yourself something from Google. Apple has determined that in rare cases, the battery in the Beats Pill XL may overheat and pose a fire safety risk. Now, how rare that instance is, they don't really say. The company sent a press release, though, that no other Beats or Apple products are involved in the recall, but the risk is real. So far, Apple has received 8 reports of the Pill XL overheating, and one user is said to have suffered burns as a direct result. How those burns occurred, we're not sure, but again, burns happen, so that's bad. The recall impacts about 222,000 units sold in the United States and about 11,000 sold in Canada. The Beats Pill XL owners who participate in the recall are going to get $325 in compensation. The original price of the speaker was $299.99, so that you actually get a little bit more money in either an Apple Store credit or through electronic payment. So you can get either Apple Store payment or credit for $325, or you can get this in a direct payment to your credit card or whatever. So you can't just bring your fire hazard Beats speaker to the local Apple Store, though. If you own it, you have to head to a website link, fill out a form, and then Apple will mail you a box to return it in. Once they've gotten it, your refund will arrive within about 3 weeks. So there are way better speakers available at that same price point, according to The Verge. So if you want to get a positive way of looking at it, Apple's giving you another chance to buy something better than the Beats Pill XL. I'm going to take a second to diss Beats a little bit. I'm going to take a second to throw my own diss track at Dr. Dre. I'm the whitest person ever, by the way. I'm so white that I should never use rap vernacular ever. The fact that I called it rap vernacular just proves that. But here's my little diss track at Beats by Dre. Audio has a thing called EQ, equalization, right? Most speakers should have flat EQ, which you can then adjust yourself. Beats by Dre don't, and the equalization on these particular speakers is way tuned towards bass heavy. I mean bass heavy to the point where there's almost distortion. People like bass, and that's fine. I like bass too. I have a little sound system in my room that I have fine-tuned myself. It's a Yamaha something or another. I always forget the numbers, but it's a Yamaha receiver that I've hooked up to RCA speakers and yada yada. But anyway, the equalization on Beats Audio or anything by Beats is way, way, way too bassy for me. It's just totally messed up, and it distorts with a lot of the electronic music I listen to. So I don't like Beats by Dre. There's a lot of better options you can buy. There are millions of different options you can buy. If you're interested in, say, $30 price point headphones, you can get some actually by Monoprice that are pretty decent, and they have detachable earphone cable, just like Beats by Dre, the higher end ones, and you're probably going to get a lot more bang for your buck. The ones that we use at the studio, actually, we have headphones here at the studio that we use a lot. I like them. Sony MDRs. They are great headphones, flat EQ. Again, they're meant for studio, so you really can't go wrong. Just a pair of Sony MDRs will do you good. The things last forever. You can't break them unless you accidentally do. There are ones that have a potentiometer in line, so you can adjust the volume. Some of them have a mute, and some have a mono switch as well, which is kind of interesting. But anyway, you can buy those headphones at a much better price point than the Beats by Dre. Beats by Dre can run you close to $200. I don't know why you'd spend that on headphones that aren't that great and don't sound very good. I don't know. It's sort of like baby's first headphones is how I sort of think of Beats by Dre. If you want to buy Beats by Dre, you can buy Beats by Dre. Don't get me wrong. You know, if you want to make that purchase, you're totally free to. Again, free market. I'm glad you can make that purchase. But my suggestion is you get something else. Do some research into headphones before you drop $300, $200 on a pair of headphones. Just not a good idea unless you know what you're doing. Anyway, have you heard of Kim.com? That's not his real name. His real name is Kim Schwartz, but he changed his name to Kim.com because he's the founder, he's the owner of Mega Upload. Remember Mega Upload from way back in the 2000s? I mean, like 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009, and then FBI. He got in a bit of trouble with the FBI for alleged copyright infringement. Now, it wasn't necessarily Kim.com himself who committed acts of copyright infringement. It was people on his website who supposedly uploaded videos of copyrighted content to his file sharing network, Mega Upload. For some reason, he got in trouble for that. I'm not sure how that happens. It's like if you own a convenience store and people do drug deals within your convenience store and you don't even know about it, somehow you would be liable for that. I don't know how that works, but that's what they're alleging. So Kim.com is going to get to keep his millions of dollars and his cars and his jet skis for now. So a New Zealand court where Mr. .com resides has found in favor of Kim.com's attempt to halt the American government's forfeiture of his New Zealand held assets. The Wednesday decision by the High Court of New Zealand, the Auckland Registry, essentially found that because .com lost the civil forfeiture case by default judgment in March of 2015 under an American legal theory known as the Doctrine of Fugitive Disentitlement, and that New Zealand law did not recognize such a concept, then his assets should not be handed over. In recent months, the American government has tried to work with its New Zealand counterparts to have his forfeiture enforced. The problem, again, is a problem that Americans tend to have where we think we're better than everybody else, and maybe we are. I don't know. I've not been to every single country, so I can't really tell you that we're better than everybody else. I've only visited 2 countries so far. I've been to this one, these great United States of America, and I've been to Canada. I didn't notice a really big disparity between the United States and Canada. Maybe there's a really giant one that I'm missing somehow. Canada sort of seems like an alternate universe America anyway. It's really weird. If you look at the subtleties, it's just really bizarre to think about how Canada is almost like an alternate universe version of of the United States. And I'm sure Canadians think the same thing when they come down here. So, but it's just kind of bizarre. But anyway, American exceptionalism is going to prevail anyway. It doesn't matter what I say. It doesn't matter what you say. People are going to think that way anyway. I'm not going to convince anybody otherwise. So we have this idea that we're somehow better than everyone else because we say we are. And this has sort of led to us thinking that our legal system is the best ever and our laws should be enforced in other countries. That's where things start to get a little bit weird. Kim.com is being charged under these laws, even though, as far as I know, he's never been to the United States, at least not during the time of his trial. Why would he? So people are trying to, or rather the FBI is trying to seize his assets, even though they're held in another country. I'm not sure how they're planning on doing that. That amounts to essentially theft, especially since the New Zealand legal system doesn't recognize the concept of forfeiture in the same way that we do. So why we are suddenly allowed to steal stuff because we say we're better doesn't really make any sense. But the Wednesday decision by the High Court of New Zealand, the Auckland Registry, essentially found that because .com lost the civil forfeiture case by default judgment in 2012 or 2015 under an American legal theory known as the doctrine of fugitive disentitlement, New Zealand court isn't going to recognize that and so is not going to enforce it. So .com says that this is a blow to the United States government strategy that's designed to starve me out, said .com, the embattled Mega Upload founder. He emailed Ars Technica early Wednesday morning saying that the judgment is now throwing a significant wrench into the civil forfeiture case that United States federal prosecutors brought in July of 2014. The New Zealand decision will almost certainly be appealed to the Court of Appeal in New Zealand and then possibly up to the Supreme Court of New Zealand, a process that could take many months. But for now, Mr. .com still has all of his BMWs and he still has all of his millions of dollars and he still has all of his jet skis and things. And really, I think he should. Kim.com seems like kind of a cool guy, maybe a little bit odd, but he seems like kind of a cool guy. He seems to be a good father to his two daughters. I don't have anything against Kim.com, but the United States federal government has quite a lot against Kim.com, and it seems like whatever he did, whether he actually is involved in copyright infringement or not, shouldn't really matter because taking a guy away from his two kids at this point seems to be kind of wrong. We're talking about a question of money, and is that really worth stealing all of his assets and taking him away from his kids? And all that whole rigmarole doesn't seem to be quite worth it. Well, USB-C. Have you heard about USB-C? Okay, we all have this problem where we plug in a USB port and it's always the wrong way around. Every single time. Try it right now. Take a USB port and try to plug it into your computer. You're going to do it wrong way around, I guarantee you. Unless you know that the USB symbol is going to be on the right side up, and so that should be pointing upwards when you're plugging it in. Unless you know that, you're going to plug it in wrong way around. Everyone does it at some point in their life, especially if they're not looking. It's a frustration. It's annoying. I hate it. Well, the solution is here. We don't have to worry anymore. USB-C has already won, according to The Verge. So as it likes to do, Apple has recently released a product before the world was ready. The new 12-inch MacBook has but one port, unless you count the headphone jack. And it's a completely new connector that almost no one has ever used before on a consumer device, breaking direct compatibility with millions of standard USB devices. That connector is known as USB Type-C or just USB-C, and it's likely to become the most ubiquitous advances in the recent history of computing and consumer electronics. No kidding. USB-C is going to change the world. USB-C is a revolution. USB-C is the future. That's USB-C. And what that is it's a reversible universal serial bus connector, meaning that I can plug in the port the wrong way around, and it's not the wrong way around. It's universal. Oh my gosh, thank goodness. So now we can universally connect our devices without having to worry about the whole issue of it's the wrong way around and you got to flip it over. So how is the USB-C rollout going? Well, Jeff Ravencraft, who's president and COO of the USB Implementers Forum, who calls early Type-C devices like the Nokia N1 tablet and the latest MacBook and the new Chromebook Pixel above and beyond our wildest dreams for the first products to hit the market. Manufacturers such as Asus have gotten on board with USB-C, this Computex 2, and it's hard to walk the show floor without coming across hubs, adapters, and cables that support the new standard. This is the fastest transition we've seen in 15 years or more, says Ravencraft. So knock on wood, everything's going extremely well, and we're really excited. So that having been said, USB-C has hit the market, and you better be ready to transition over. USB 2.0, USB 3.0, USB Type A and B connectors are going out the window. Thank goodness. What does this mean for us, though? That's always a question that should be asked. Who cares? That is the essential question in journalism. Who cares? Well, I care, and you should care too, and here's why. If you have a phone, you probably have a cell phone. You probably have a smartphone. I have one right here, knocking it on my head. It has a USB Mini B. That's the connector type that it has. That connector is now outdated. Right now, that connector is outdated. I need to get a new phone, basically. I right now need to run out and buy a new phone that has USB Type-C on it because now this phone is outdated immediately. As of now, my phone is outdated. Your phone is outdated. Mr. Tools' phone, David Tools behind me, his phone is outdated now. All of our phones are outdated. Confederate Mike, who owns the radio station, his phone's outdated too. We all need to get new phones now because USB-C has hit the market. Now, that's okay because that's progress, right? That's the free market. That's why I'm making this whole speech about USB-C. Is this happened without any help from the United States Standards Office or whatever? This all happened without the help of those different organizations. Guess what? The free market prevailed yet again, as it always does, unless there's government interference, in which case it flows around that and finds another way. And that's fine too. That's when you start to get in areas like black market, where you see real market value of different items without having to worry about price markup because of government taxes or tariffs. On the other hand, you have to see markup because of risk involved in selling an illegal product. But anyway, that's a whole nother story for a whole nother day. The fact of the matter is USB-C has seen a successful rollout without the help of the government. Now that's kind of weird, right? That's very odd. How could this be? How could this fluke happen that we have a successful rollout of a new technological standard without the help of the government? Well, actually, that's how it's going to be. Without the help of the government, we'll see successful rollouts of consumer products that are good for us, the consumers, or customers, as I like to say, because consumer is just so barcode, man. So we get to see these exciting new rollouts in technology without the help of the government. So what's the organization behind this? What's the organization that's going to step in and say, you're out of line, you can't use this product, you can't use that product? Well, there actually is a standards organization, believe it or not. It's called the ISO, International Standards Organization, or iOS, International Organization of Standards, depending on if you're in France or you're speaking English. It's the International Standards Organization. It's based in France, and they are actually really good at determining whether products are in standard or not. So to use USB-C, you have to sign an agreement, and it's free to use it, to use USB in the proper way. And that's how it's always been, how it's always going to be. You know how cameras have something called a foot or a mount? Well, that actually is an ISO standard. You know how you mount a microphone on top of a camera, or you mount a light on top of your camera, you mounted a flash on top of a DSLR? Guess what? That's an ISO standard, meaning that this foot will work on this camera, this camera, this camera, this camera. It's standards, and it's not set by government. It's set by the market, set by market players. That's free market. That's real economy. That's local economy too. Well, this is Digital Drive. I'm your host, Russell, and David Tools with Nuganomics.com is coming up in just a few seconds. He's going to talk about local economy and free markets right here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, and hotnewstalkradio.com. Get the TuneIn app too.
This is a mob mode. This is the mob mode. What kind of fool do you think I am? You think I know nothing about my...
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Don't worry, just relax. You need a car. Come to Automax.
My wife and I keep the cost down. We sell a quality vehicle at a great price. Our overhead is low. I have no employees, so I can keep my costs down. In turn, the consumer gets a better price. Everything that I sell is emission ready. We really try to go the extra mile for our customer. I don't have to pay an employee commission. I don't have to pay somebody to come out here and wash my cars. You know, I do it all from buying to selling, from A to Z. I don't have the overhead where I have to raise the price on my vehicle to cover costs. Here at Automax, you're going to guarantee that you get credit. As long as you're making those payments, you're going to build on your credit. Unlike the buy here, pay here is where they don't report to credit bureaus. We report to all three credit bureaus. The subprime lenders that we deal with, you don't have to have any credit, or you can have bad credit. You can even have a bankruptcy, a repossession.
Don't worry, just relax. You need a car. Come to Automax.
Surgery does not have to be financially painful. Hi, I'm surgical Dr. David Red, and I'd like to invite you to my walk-in surgery clinic in North Shore. Quick Surge brings you immediate relief from moles, skin tags, maybe a laceration. Quick Surge. You walk in, fill out a mini form, I numb the area I'll treat, and before you know it, you're on your way home. Do I take insurance? No, because I take cash customers. I have super low and fixed prices, credit card, check, or cash. Uninsured? Member of the working financially disadvantaged? Choose Quick Surge. I publish prices online. No murk, just sunshine. Hassle-free, pain-free. Love the idea of a personal relationship with a doctor? Drop in with a nasty cut from work. Quick Surge. I'll take care of you. Quick Surge in the Public Center on the North Shore. No insurance hassles with Quick Surge. The national medical system is dysfunctional, overpriced, very alienating. I'm part of the solution, and so are you. Come on home. QuickSurge.com. QuickSurg. Relief.
Are you calling me Yeller? Them's is fighting words.
Being called yellow, not a compliment. Yellow, the international symbol for caution. Yellow. You certainly wouldn't want to eat yellow snow. Yuck. We typically avoid yellow. So why would you put your hard-earned money into an outdated, expensive, slower yellow page? Or even trust their advice? Especially when your hard-earned advertising dollars could go much further, earning you greater profits using the multifaceted resources and expertise of Chattanooga Web Services. You want real results for your advertising dollars. The local Chattanooga media experts, Chattanooga Web Services, will help your business grow, utilizing diversified media resources that's affordable to you, whether it involves the internet's World Wide Web, video, audio, or modern-day print. So don't get sucked into the yellow folks trying to upsell you into spending even more money as it ventures into a territory unfamiliar to them, the internet. Call Chattanooga Web Services, 424-3373. That's 424-3373. Or go to ChattanoogaWebServices.com, ChattanoogaWebServices.com.
When my brother and I opened our first Jets Pizza, we believed if we made the best pizza, customers would find us. So we made fresh dough each day, used fresh toppings, and premium mozzarella cheese. 300 plus stores later, we still do.
Try Jet's famous 8-corner pizza with premium mozzarella cheese and one topping, now just $11.99 for a limited time only. Jet's Pizza, the best pizza in town. 3600 Hickson Pike.
Life is short. Eat better pizza.
Let's get Jets. If you have the DTs, the shakes, because your phone is on the fritz, you have nomophobia. You need help. Your telecom doctor is in. Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall. Cell Surgeon yanks open the ribcage of your phone, pries out the dead heart, and puts in the beating life that you lead on your cell phone. Broken screen, phone not charging, water damage, battery given out? Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza. Check us out on Facebook. Open Sunday. Cell Surgeon. We bring your phone back to life.
You do not have to be living with constant pain. You need to make the choice today to enjoy a revitalized body. You deserve to live a better pain-free life. And Dr. Ross can help. At Ross Chiropractic, failure is not an option. For over 40 years, Dr. Ross, a graduate of the prestigious Palmer College of Chiropractic, prided himself in helping and healing. The Ross method of chiropractic care is unique in developing a treatment designed just for you.